Thank you for tuning in to Finding Kim Amero, Chapter 2, the Michael McGray episode. Whether you're watching this on the documentary or you're listening to this on the podcast, I appreciate you joining me with this journey. If you haven't watched Episode 1 or Chapter 1 as I call it, please go back and do so now and catch up with me in 20 to 25 minutes. You'll want to hear it in order to be able to follow along for sure. Now, if you don't know the name Michael McGray or had never heard of it before now, I didn't either, which I found really strange because in my generation, I know most of the serial killers, or I thought I did, of all the serial killers in Canada. I mean, there hasn't been that many in my generation. So when I read what Michael McGray has done and I read the notoriety that he received, I found it really shocking that I hadn't heard his name before. I mean, everybody knows who Alan Legier and Noel Winters are from the East. Everybody knows who the BC pig farmer is. Everyone knows Paul Bernardo from Ontario, yet I had never heard this name Michael McGray before. At least not before I investigated the disappearance of Kim Amero. So let's get right into it. Michael McGray was born July 11th, 1965 in the ski town of Collingwood, Ontario. He was raised in Argyll, Nova Scotia. In 1998, he committed the only murder he would get caught for committing. The rest he would confess to. And this murder was the murder of Joan and Nina Hicks. Joan and 11-year-old Nina moved to Moncton, New Brunswick from Noggin Cove, Newfoundland. Joan wanted to move to Moncton to be closer to her boyfriend, who was serving a life sentence for killing his ex-wife in Dorchester Penitentiary in Moncton. His name was Aubrey Sparks. She didn't want to just exchange mail anymore. Of course, there was no internet at the time, so she wanted to be able to see him in person, so she packed up her 11-year-old daughter, Nina, and off she went, against the advice of her family. Now, in December 1997, at a shelter, Joan had befriended Michael McGray and his girlfriend. And on February 28th, 1998, Michael McGray's girlfriend, and Glenn Bennett, a friend of theirs, went to Joan Hicks's house for a visit. Now, according to Michael McGray, he had been mainlining cocaine the entire day, and he had felt this overwhelming urge, almost as if he had like a murderous Tourette's, if you will. He felt this incredible urge to kill someone. So he sent his girlfriend on an errand, and he walked into the hallway, and he strangled Joan Hicks, and then slit her throat with a bread knife. He then walked into Nina Hicks's room and choked her to death and hung her in the closet by her underwear. I'm taking a pause here because that is like, I hate even those words leaving my mouth. I hate it that even happened. But moving on, friend Glenn Bennett thankfully ran right to the police department, and within 24 hours, Michael McGray was arrested for this crime. Had Glenn Bennett not done so, because in all of the other Michael McGray murders, or not all of them, but most of them, there had been some sort of co-conspirator who didn't tell out of fear. So thankfully, Glenn Bennett went and told the police, because had he not, who knows how many more murders Michael McGray would have been able to commit. So Glenn Bennett, wherever you are a hero to the residents or citizens of Canada for preventing more crime. Now, believe it or not, when it comes to murders committed by Michael McGray, we're just getting started. This is that, like I said, the murder of Joan and Nina Hicks was the only one he was actually caught for. The rest he would confess to. So let's run down his body count, or tally, shall we? Prior to being caught for the murder of Joan Hicks in 1985, when Michael McGray was only 19 years old. 19 years old. He was driving in Digby, Nova Scotia, 4 months before Kim Amero went missing, and he came upon hitchhiker Gail Tucker. He exited the vehicle as if he was picking her up and opening the door for her, and instead he stabbed her to death, leaving her on the side of the road to die. 2 years later, Michael McGray and two friends planned to rob a taxi cab driver in St. John, New Brunswick. There was three of them all together: Mark Gibbons, Michael McGray, and someone else who I will not name, and I'll tell you why in a second. Mark Gibbons was to get in the front, stab the taxi cab driver to death, and the rest were supposed to run away with the money. However, Mark Gibbons screwed up his assignment, botched the robbery. They all ran their separate ways out of the taxi cab. Later that night, Michael McGray and Mark Gibbons were arguing in the Market Square of St. John about the botched robbery, and Michael McGray stabbed Mark Gibbons to death, leaving him to die at the entrance of Market Square in uptown St. John, New Brunswick. He then went to his girlfriend's house, and he convinced his girlfriend and the girlfriend of the co-conspirator that the third co-conspirator had committed the murder of Mark Gibbons. He then went to police, relayed the same thing. The women backed him up, and the third co-conspirator was charged with murder and tried for it. However, he was found not guilty. He didn't do it. Later on in life, the ladies would say they had only stuck with Michael Wayne McGray's story out of fear. However, Michael Wayne McGray and the third co-conspirator did receive a light, 5-year sentence for robbing the taxi cab at the time. Fast forward now to 1991, when there was this homicide epidemic going on in downtown Montreal regarding gay men. On a 3-day pass from prison, Michael Wayne McGray met Robert Asali, a gay man, went to his house, slept the night, and in the morning he woke up, stabbed him to death, and moved on. He moved on to Gaetan Etier, another gay man in Montreal. He went to Gaetan's house, stabbed him to death, and then went back to prison on the 3rd day. So all while on this 3-day pass, he murdered 2 gay men in Montreal to add to the 12 gay men who had been murdered previously. Now, as I said, Michael Wayne McGray was never caught for any of these murders aside from Joan and Nina Hicks. While he was waiting trial for the double homicide of Joan and Nina, Inspector William Reid from the St. John Police Department received a strange phone call from the Moncton Police Department. It was about a long ago unsolved murder of Mark Gibbons. Turns out, while in police custody, Michael Wayne McGray had confessed to killing the men from Montreal, Gail Tucker and Mark Gibbons. Here's what Inspector William Reid had to say about that phone call and the subsequent confession.
In 1999, I received a telephone call from an investigator here in Moncton inquiring had we had a homicide with respect to a chap by the name of Mark Gibbon. And we went to Renew's prison, which is here in the province of New Brunswick, maximum security prison, and I had a meeting with Mr. McGray. And he said, I want you to know something right now, and this is before the actual confession unfolded. He said, I am not doing this because I had emotions or I feel bad for anybody. As a result of the conversation with Michael, we obtained a very detailed confession where he in fact was the person that stabbed Mark Gibbon and caused his death.
So what does any of this have to do with Kim Amero? Well, this is right around the time that the Ameros received a phone call from the St. John Police Department. Apparently, Michael Wayne McGray had confessed to killing Kim Amero and burying her on Kingston Peninsula. Now, this sends up a red flag for me immediately, and I'm not sure if it did for the police department or not, but Michael Wayne McGray, his M.O. so far, all the people that he had admitted to killing, he had stabbed them or choked them and left them to die. He was, in his words, fulfilling an overwhelming tick or an overwhelming urge to kill someone in that moment, and then when it was done, he was done. So, kidnapping wasn't his M.O., burying his victims wasn't his M.O., but I'm guessing that at the time that he admitted to it, he was just, spouting out off all these murders that he had actually committed, that maybe that his M.O. kind of went to the wayside. But when the Ameros received this phone call, you have to remember, this is 14 years since the Ameros had last seen their sister. 14 years since any concrete evidence or leads. 14 years without word. 14 years after the disappearance of Kim Amero. And here's this serial killer stating that he holds the key to finding her. I can't even imagine the despair and disappointment and sad relief that they must have felt while they were waiting for the police to dig up the Kingston Peninsula. I mean, Michael Wayne McGray showed them on a map, according to the Ameros, where she had been buried, and they began this incredibly costly dig on the Kingston Peninsula while the Amero siblings waited to see what they found. But here's where it all goes weird. The police stopped digging. One police officer said it was because they learned that Michael Wayne McGray was in jail at the time that Kim went missing, so he couldn't have committed the crime. Another officer said that they simply just didn't find her and couldn't afford to keep digging. I don't know what the answer is. Now, I understand that this is at the time before internet, and records just weren't at your fingertips like they are now, but I have since discovered evidence that suggests he wasn't in jail during that time. Furthermore, through all of the archives I've looked at, so all of the old news footage, newspaper footage, I even went to the peninsula and knocked on some doors to see if any of the good old boys remembered this dig, and not one person and not one archive reflects that the police dug up anywhere on Kingston Peninsula in search of Kim Amero, which is mind-boggling to me, because you think there would have at least been a newspaper article about it or something, some sort of footage. You would think that a whole bunch of people gathered around and watched, I imagine, out of morbid curiosity, but I can't find anything. If you have any old newspapers, or for some reason, you remember this, or your grandmother remembers it, or your mom remembers it, please get in touch with me at jamie@live.ca, JAYME@live.ca. I would love to peruse whatever evidence you have that this dig actually happened. Given that the disappearance of Kim Amero, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, just call the police, they'll verify it. I'm getting there. Given that her disappearance is an active case, there's only certain information that can be given to the public. But you'd think that a public dig, where I'm sure, of course, like I said, there was a crowd, would be publicly information. It wouldn't be something that they have to, hold on to and not tell anybody about because it's an active case. So I did call the Hampton Police Department because they cover the peninsula. After 2 weeks of waiting, they referred me to Fredericton, who after a week and a half of waiting referred me to the St. John Police Department, who then wrote the Ameros a Dear John letter, basically saying that they're not going to confirm or deny anything because this is an active case. But this is a very important part of this documentary. It's a very important piece of this case. I mean, is he the reason why they dug? Did they dig at all? Why did they stop digging? Do we still think that he did it? Is there a chance that he did it? Should we dig further? There's just no answers there, and the police aren't helping, and there's no archives to support this dig. And it was at this point that I had to take the second hardest step that I've taken in this documentary. I mean, I'm not getting anywhere with police. I feel that the answers to this Michael Wayne McGray mystery are incredibly important. So I thought long and hard and made the shitty decision to try to contact Michael Wayne McGray. That was a tough decision to make, but I made it. And I stuck with it. How do you get in touch with a prisoner? I mean, there's 17 prisons in Canada that hold maximum security prisoners. And because of the Privacy Act, when you call these prisons and say, hey, I would like to write Michael Wayne McGray a letter, or I would like to be on his call list, if you don't know that he's in that prison, they tell you that there's nothing they can do. They can't confirm or deny that he's there, and they can't give you any information if you aren't certain that that's where he is. They won't help you. I started my phone calls at the prison in Renew, New Brunswick. She told me about this handicap that I would have if I didn't know where he was being kept. Basically, she said you'll have to write 17 letters to 17 prisons and hope they get to the offender you're looking for. Now, she was very, very nice, because she did follow that up with, but if I were you, I wouldn't write one to Renew. So that was helpful. But you know what? I've watched Dateline. I've watched crime stories. I know there's got to be a better way. I know that there's got to be a way to get in contact with these prisoners. I mean, how does everybody else get in contact with them? How do prison pen pals find them? How do people write fan mail to prisoners? Because that actually happens. I knew there had to be a better way. So I kept calling prison after prison after prison after prison. And I had two notable conversations. After every single prison that I had called from Renew to Quebec, and they all said to me the same thing: I can't confirm or deny that Michael Wayne McGray is in this prison. You can write a letter to this prison. It'll come back to you if he's not here. Quebec kind of stopped me in my tracks because I seemed to be on this disappointing roll. The minute I said Michael Wayne McGray, she put me on hold for at least 10 minutes. Then she came back and asked me what I specifically wanted from him. What do you want from him? And I said, I want to ask him 2 questions. So either on his call list or write him a letter. I just have 2 questions for him. So she put me on another hold for a little while. Then she came back and said, Michael Wayne McGray isn't here, and hung up. And I thought, whoa. Due to the Privacy Act, you're not allowed to tell me that. So I thought that was fishy. And the fact that she just hung up and didn't let me speak further was fishy. So I put a little star beside Quebec, thinking maybe he is there. And maybe they don't know who I am, or maybe it's, very not a common phone call that they get. So they want to do a little digging first. So I put a little star beside Quebec. Second notable conversation I had was with a woman in BC. I was given her number by the Abbotsford prison, and she explained that if I write the letter, she'll read it and convey it to the inmate. And I thought, that's strange, because why would nobody else offer that? So he must be in Abbotsford. So Abbotsford got a star alongside of Quebec. So I thought, okay, my first 2 letters, instead of sending 17 letters out, I'm going to send one to Quebec, one to Abbotsford, see where I get. But that means I had to write him a letter. I had to write a letter to a garbage human being. And how do you do that? If I said the things I wanted to say, I'd get nowhere with him. I tried over and over again to write something that sounded remotely civil, and I couldn't. And I thought, you know what? Instead of caring about what I sound like, or instead of, caring about the previous crimes he's committed, I've got to focus my attention on finding Kim Amero. So I was very blunt, And I just said, "Dear Mr. McGray, I am currently shooting a documentary on the disappearance of Kim Amero." And I explained when Kim went missing, and I explained why he was an important piece of this case. And I just said, "I'm stumped. So I have 2 questions for you, Mr. McGray. Did you say that you killed Kim Amero and buried her on Kingston Peninsula? And if you did say it, did you do it?" That was it. The end. And I mailed it off. And I mailed one to Quebec, and I mailed one to Abbotsford. Long before I imagined that my letter reached BC or Quebec, I received a very strange email from a gentleman who works out of the Correctional Service Canada branch in Quebec. His job title is this long. I'm not going to say his name or his job title simply because I don't know if I'm allowed. I know that a lot of even police at the detective level, have their numbers unlisted. So I don't want to get him in trouble. I don't want to get me in trouble. But this gentleman said this line: "Bonjour, Mrs. Splood. I found your coordinates on the internet. I'm told you're interested in contacting an offender under Corrections Canada supervision. Please state your intent." And so I did. I said, "Dear Mr. Blank, this is what I'm doing. I've sent a letter to Quebec and I've sent a letter to Abbotsford, and I will send 15 more letters if need be. I just want these 2 questions answered." And he immediately called me, and he told me about all the hoops I'd have to jump through, all the red tape I'd have to go through. He said he was going to send me all these forms that I had to fill out because it's not a personal request, it's a media request. And I'm looking at these forms, and I legit don't know the answer to like 90% of the questions. And I'm filling them out. I got really frustrated. I thought, I'm not getting anywhere. How does anybody get anywhere? I almost needed the help of someone who's done this before, because I'd never felt so unskilled or unable before. And I finally just said, screw it. And I sent this gentleman back a letter saying, please let me jump through these hoops. Please just cut up the red tape. Please don't make me fill out these forms that I don't know the answers to. I just want to ask this guy 2 questions for a simple little documentary. Please tell me how I can ask him these 2 questions. And he said, "What 2 questions do you want answered?" I sent them again, and I waited. Now, I didn't know at this time if he had let me jump through the red tape or if he was just, kind of pushing me under the carpet a little bit, going, "Just give me 2 questions. I'll make you wait 2 weeks and give you more paperwork." But after a couple of weeks, I got back this message: "Bonjour, Miss Splood. I presented your questions to Michael McGray, and at this time, he has declined to reply." Declined to reply. What does that even mean? What do you mean you declined to reply? It was a yes or no question. There's no decline there. And so I immediately sent him back a message and said, what can I do to get him to answer these questions? I don't know. Can I buy him something? Can I, give him tuck money? I don't know how prisons work. I was just like so upset. My heart was beating a million miles an hour. And I was like, just please tell me what I can do. Can I buy him some shoes? Or I don't know what prisoners need. I don't know what would make a prisoner comfortable. I don't know anything. Can you just help me out and tell me what I can do to get him to answer? And he sent me back a message: "I'm sorry, Miss Splood, but Michael Wayne McGray has declined to reply to your email." So I thought, okay, fine. I'm just going to have to figure out what this means. I have to figure out what him declining to reply means. And I'm not a psychiatrist. So I immediately got on the phone to the great talent pool of psychologists and psychiatrists in St. John, New Brunswick. And I finally found one willing to help me. However, she has asked me to not name her in this documentary, so I won't. But I can relay her educated opinion. Now, every psychiatrist and psychologist that I called in St. John, back to back, I got their secretaries. This particular woman, I got her because her secretary had just stepped out for lunch. So I think just to get me off the phone and stop my mouth from moving, she agreed to help. And if you're listening or if you're watching, dear psychiatrist, thank you very, very much, because you helped shape my opinion, and I have some strength and weight behind it, and I'm able to move forward in this documentary. So, said psychiatrist, watch the documentary on Michael Wayne McGray called The Homicidal Drifter. It's made by Crime Stories. It's on YouTube. It's incredible. You should watch it if you're interested in learning more about Michael Wayne McGray. She looked at the evidence that I presented her, and she came up with 2 theories. Theory number 1, Michael Wayne McGray gets caught for the murder of Joan and Nina Hicks, and he just starts verbally vomiting all of his crimes all over the police officers. Why? For notoriety, fame, and attention. He has said time and time again, he even said it to Inspector William Reid, that he didn't feel bad. He had no remorse for what he's done. So if that's the case, the only other, real plausible reason of why he was verbally vomiting it all over everyone was to get the notoriety and fame. He said a few times, I've killed more people than any other serial killer in Canada and blah, blah, blah. So because he was here, local at the time, he would have heard about the disappearance of Kim Amero, maybe through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. He knew someone who knew Kim Amero. And it just seemed to go along well with the confessions. So, he admits to all these murders. He's glamorizing himself as this great serial killer. He throws Kim Amero in the mix. The police take him seriously. They start digging on Kingston Peninsula. Or theory number 2 was the police haven't met his demands, which I disagree with. And after I filled in the psychiatrist, she kind of does as well. Because all along the Michael Wayne McGray journey, from the moment he got caught in February 1998 until now, he has always said the same thing, that he's sick, he's full of demons, he has like a murderous Tourette's where he just gets this incredible urge to kill people, and he does, and then it's over. It's like an itch to scratch. You scratch and it's done. You don't think about it again. So way back when he was admitting to all of these crimes, and ever since that he's admitted to all of these crimes, he said 3 simple demands. He gave the police a bunch of freebies. He gave them, Gail Tucker. He allowed Robert and Gatan's family to put them at rest, or to finally have his murder solved. Same with Mark Gibbons. So it's, so he's given them all these freebies, and he said, listen, I've killed at least 11 more people, but you're not getting it for free. I have 3 demands. Demand number 1 is no more trials. He's going to jail for the rest of his life. He's been found guilty on all of his crimes. His other demand is that he wants no charging of his co-conspirators, because he says his co-conspirators had nothing to do with the actual murder of anybody, so he doesn't want them charged. And he wants help. He wants help for his demons. He wants psychiatric care. And the police have said no. All along, the police have said no. Which I think is bullshit. I gotta be honest. I think it's bullshit. If I had a loved one missing, and it's 30 years later, and I know that this guy has the key to me bringing them home, to me knowing what happened to them about their last day, if I know that this guy's holding the key, I don't care if he gets charged for it, because he's going to jail for the rest of his life. That doesn't matter to me. I don't need the glamour from it. I don't need the judge and jury and trial. He's saying that he did it. I'm going to believe him. If he finds their body, obviously he knows where they're located. Obviously he did it. And I don't care if his co-conspirators get charged. I just get to bring my relative home. So I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair that police just, I get it that they have reasons, and we don't negotiate with terrorists and blah, 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 but come on. I mean, if he says he killed 11 more people, and he's only going to give up their names if they agree to get him psychiatric care, not to charge his co-conspirators, and not to go through trial, let him do it. Oh my God. Or, do it on a 1-by-1 basis. Just say, what, we'll try this. Give me a name of 1 and I'll ask the family. I don't know, something. Work with him. He's willing to admit to it. And the police, just say no. That's bullshit. But so theory number 2 is that the police haven't met his demands, and that's why he's declining to reply on the Kim Amero theory. But I spoke a little bit more to the psychiatrist about it, saying, yeah, but Kim Amero was one of the freebies. She wasn't one of the 11. He gave up. He confessed to the Kim Amero murder. He said he killed her and buried her on Kingston Peninsula. So she's like in the free column, And so the psychiatrist agreed, saying, you know what? Maybe in the back of his head, he's like, well, I'm not giving up any information because the police haven't met any of my demands. But at the same time, if he knows that, or he would gather that I could find this information out elsewhere, turns out I can't, then why decline to reply if that's the case? So her and I were really hung up on this looking for the fame, loving the attention theory, because he didn't just admit it all at once either. He went from cop to cop and just like threw out these little tidbits. Hey, I murdered this person. Hey, I murdered this person. And turns out everybody, that he had said that he had murdered, the police went back and dug into it, and sure enough, he had. So I was super lost of where to go from here. I'm not getting any help from the police. Michael Wayne McGray isn't talking. I feel like, this is unsolvable. I was really down about the documentary. I took a couple days, just did some soul searching, thinking, maybe I can't go on with this. Maybe I just can't figure it out. But do I even move on from here if I can't figure it out? I mean, if Michael Wayne McGray just said it for the attention, then fine, he just said it for the attention, but where's the proof that they actually dug it all? So I went around in this crazy spiral, and I was sitting at Brits at the Rockwood Golf Course, great restaurant if you haven't been, and I was looking at this bracelet. It says, "Remember me." Tammy Raines gave it to me in spirit of Kim. It glows in the dark, actually. I didn't know that, but I see it at night. And it made me think, if he had abducted her, she more than likely went unwillingly, because her family says that, the name wasn't familiar. Her friends say they don't know a Michael Wayne McGray. So that little piece of time of him abducting her in the middle of a fair, no doubt, or on the outskirts of a fair, no doubt, seem impossible to me, because this bracelet has always represented to me the fierceness and the toughness and the smart mouth and not afraid to fight and rough and tough kind of girl that Kim was. I mean, she was soft and girly, but you didn't want to mess with her. So I need, first and foremost, to find out, you're going to tell me that in the middle of a fair with her, given her personality, she would have gone kicking and screaming and fighting and shouting and no one saw anything. He successfully abducted her. I can't buy that. I can't buy that he would have been able to take her from the fair without her putting up a huge fight. And you know what? Maybe she was in better shape than him from the pictures it looks to be. So she would have kicked and fought and screamed, and you're telling me that he would have successfully got her in the car and driven away with her? I don't know. I can't buy that theory. And the other thing that really bothers me about that theory is this. If he didn't know what I was talking about, so if he never said that he had killed her and buried her on Kingston Peninsula, and that was all a lie, and it was all a ruse, then his response to me would have been, what are you talking about? When I said, did you kill Kim Amero, or did you say you killed her and buried her on Kingston Peninsula, he would have been like, who the heck's Kim Amero? So I believe that Michael Wayne McGray said it. But if you look at his MO, he doesn't abduct people. He doesn't kidnap people. That's not what he's out to do. He gets an urge to kill people. He kills someone and he's done. So why would he abduct Kim Amero and take her all the way to the peninsula? What, did he take her on the ferry? Did he drive all the way to Hampton and around? I think that's crazy. Those are the only two paths. So those of you not from St. John, to take her from the St. John Fair, which I'm guessing she didn't get in the car willingly, so that to me seems so bizarre and out there anyways, he would have gone from the fair all the way down a highway, I would say about a 15-minute drive down a main highway. Then he would have had to have gone about a 10-minute drive down another main road and got on a car ferry, which holds, I don't know, let's say 20 cars, and you don't get out and there's no lounge decks to get around. Like, you're all sitting there tightly knit in your car like this, with your neighbors right next to you. And then he gets off the ferry and goes into Kingston, or he would have had to take in like a half hour, maybe 40-minute drive through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towns to get to Kingston Peninsula. So that's not his MO. That's not what he does. He has said time and time again, it's an urge, it's a scratch, it's an itch, it's a tick, that he just has to kill someone, and he just goes, bananas fixating on it until he does. I mean, I'm going to have to guess that he said it for the notoriety here. And I'm also going to go out on a limb and leave the abducted by the stranger theory here. Because if that's the only stranger we have, evidence of someone who's abducted her, I'm going to say no. There's no way she was abducted by a stranger, let alone carted through town after she was abducted, because she would have gone kicking and screaming. So after explaining all this to my dear psychiatrist, we both together came up with this. He said it for the infamy. He said it for the attention. He was addicted to the attention that he was getting at the time. And he has no idea where Kim Amero is. And the reason why he declined to reply is because he is a human being and he has human emotion. And saying that it was a lie could have ruined, further help from the police if they do go ahead to agree to his demands. And it would have been embarrassing. He is a human. And so to say that he lied and it was bullshit would be embarrassing for him. So I'm going to stick with that theory of why he declined to reply, because of the embarrassment and because of the future jeopardy that it could have on Michael Wayne McGray's prison time. Now, side note, while in prison, he was in maximum security and the police decided to move him to medium security. And he said to the police, "You move me to medium security, I'll kill my cellmate. I know I will. I will absolutely kill my cellmate." And he did. So even in prison, he's still killing people. Garbage human being. So leaving the abducted by Michael Wayne McGray theory here, unless if you want to argue this with me, or if you think I've gone down the wrong path, or if you think I'm following the wrong leads, please let me know, jaymee@live.ca, or if you do have information regarding the disappearance of Kim Amero, as always, contact the St. John Police Department. The only thing lingering in my mind is that I can't find proof of this dig. I can't find proof that he said it. Everything he said up until that point was true. He said he killed Gil, he did. He said he killed Robert, he did. He said he killed Gatan, he did. He said he killed Mark, he did. I thought by writing him I would get the same honesty, and I didn't. And Kim was way too much of a fighter to go out like that for no one to have seen anything. I believe that she would have gone kicking and screaming, and I believe that someone would have seen something. So yes, 100% I'm leaving that abduction by a stranger theory here if Michael Wayne McGray is the only stranger we can come up with. If you'd like to argue that with me, or if you have something to reflect otherwise, please get in touch with me. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Next week we're going to discuss wizards and psychics and how they both may know where she is right now, or Kim is right now. True story. So thanks again, and until next week.